Alright, I guess today we're going to talk about Feed Me Billy, specifically the main character himself. For those of you who don't know, Billy is a huge character in the Puppet Combo universe of games, with Puppet Combo mainly being known for Stay Out of the House, which recently got a movie released via the form of Night Shift, Nun Massacre, or Night of the Nun, which is a game about going and looking for your little psychotic ass daughter, and Murder House, which was the first Puppet Combo game I played on my Xbox because I didn't have a PC yet. Fun piece of trivia for those of you who go back and watch my earlier videos, every video made before top 20 scariest Puppet Combo moments was made on an iPhone 12 using InShot. It's a shame my currently most viewed video was created using InShot Premium. Anyways, back to the main point of this video, Billy. In the previously stated Puppet Combo universe of games, Billy is a character of great importance to the serialization of the universe. Billy is a high-ranking member of a cult called the CFV. The CFV is short for the Church of the Father's Vision. I go into detail and explain the entire conception of the CFV in my Ultimate Puppet Combo timeline video, so if you want to know as much as you can about the CFV, go check that out for the most information because there is a lot to recap. In Billy's case, he is a man who wakes up to receive a phone call. That phone call is from a high-ranking member of the CFV, stating, "Rejoice, child. Rejoice in the knowledge of your conviction. You have completed our series. You are now of the enlightened children. Learn in the way of your father's vision. As you know, your goals are divine and your methods are pure. You have received an additional parcel with the final volume of our series. I would ask you now to open it and observe its contents. You now have your goal. Join us as we create our perfect world. Begin creating your father's vision." The final parcel in this message refers to his clown mask, revolver, and a flashlight. Something I have neglected to mention up to this point is that Billy has a giant flesh mass in his closet which demands human sacrifices. Something that needs mentioned is that I believe the idea that both Billy from Feed Me Billy and the Butcher from Stay Out of the House have telepathic links with the monsters that both of them are feeding. I'll talk about the end goal of feeding them later. Anyways, Billy goes on a drive in his truck to the middle of nowhere, where there is a woman using a payphone to talk to someone. Billy parks down the road and sneaks up on this woman and asks if she's ever heard of today's sponsor, Nah, I'm just playing. I don't even have 1,000 subs right now. Please sub, I'm desperate. What Billy really does is walk up and end her life, taking her back to his truck and just putting her in the bed of it like he doesn't care. A big thing with these telepathic links that people get with the monsters is that they also lose pretty much all of their humanity, including critical thinking skills. However, this is weird because Billy is showed to be able to hold a conversation, while the Butcher is more like Leatherface and implied to have become mentally handicapped due to how strong the bond is. With my headcanon being that the Butcher and Billy have amalgamated faces behind their masks, with them just being more monster than human at this point. Moving forward from all this, however, you might be recognizing this video does not necessarily read or sound the same as my Who Was the Butcher video. This is because unlike Stay Out of the House, Feed Me Billy has little to no direct notes written by Billy or anyone for that matter. The storytelling aspect of Feed Me Billy is something that is experienced by playing through the game and living through the events that proceed from this very moment from where the game begins. A lot of my character analysis of Billy later in this video will be based on environmental storytelling or just aspects of him viewed from other characters in the universe. To keep this video from being a retelling of events of Feed Me Billy, I'm just gonna let you know that essentially at the end of the day, Billy goes on to kill. Again, and again, and again. This is because Billy has become a high-ranking member of the CFV, with his goal being to feed the monster. The reason why I believe the CFV is doing this is because I believe that they are a doomsday cult, but with actual means of bringing about the apocalypse. Billy's character is kind of one-dimensional and static in many aspects, with us not knowing him to have family, parents, or anything like that. In comparison once again to the Butcher, who has a mother that lives with him, Billy feels very lonely as a character. Billy also kind of defies logic at times. This is where I'm going to start to veer away from Feed Me Billy and towards Scary Tales, which is a collection of Puppet Combo games all released under the title of Scary Tales. But the cool thing about Scary Tales is that it has its own story instead of just being a collection of games that you can play through for a muffled price. Billy's character in Scary Tales is a lot easier to see for what it is: horrifying. Billy's role in this game is to essentially recruit people to the CFV with some sort of VHS tapes that seem to hold supernatural powers, because they pretty much do. Billy is the catalyst of the story mode for Scary Tales, and he essentially sends the character we play as into a fit of madness due to the horrific and insane things that happen around them. The CFV VHS tapes seem to have powers beyond the point of simple monster formations and telepathic links. They also seem to make things decrepit. Perhaps what most of the CFV members see in their homes is that they are genuinely nice places, with the reality of the situation being that they are brainwashed and basically mind controlled into doing these things. After this, we have games that are not finished but are still works in progress, such as Feed Me More Billy, which has itself a demo in which Billy is talking to people like a normal guy. So maybe the face mesh thing is not canon, at least for Billy, or at least in this point in the story. Ben was at the creation in this demo. My headcanon for all of it is that Feed Me Billy happens with the ending occurring, which naturally progresses into Feed Me More Billy, which then becomes Scary Tales Volume 1. My reasoning for this theory is that Billy seems to have some sort of otherworldly manifestation powers which don't seem possible on a surface level unless there is a severe deterioration of who he is from the progression of the first two games to Scary Tales. I believe that the untitled demo that Puppet Combo just released was a part of Feed Me More Billy, which will include levels such as the motel from that demo, Pancake House, and an altered version of the original Feed Me More Billy demo. Again, this was a very hard video to create because Billy does not have lore-defined natural progression as much as he was simply the first member of the CFV with expansive lore and implications on the universe of the games itself. Something also very noteworthy is the time of Feed Me Billy to completion versus the time of Stay Out of the House to completion. Feed Me Billy is a short Puppet Combo game even compared to Christmas Massacre, which is essentially the same concept but with less lore implications and more of a just for fun approach to storytelling in general. Which, now that I think about it, that might be the opposite, because you kind of do get tidbits of lore about Larry. So maybe scratch that. To conclude this video, I want to again touch on some possible theories for Billy and who he was as a person before the CFV corrupted him in the same way I did for the Butcher, which essentially was the main purpose of that video. To answer the question of who Billy was, I think it would be a good idea to look at his surroundings. I'm going to stick with my timeline estimate that this game takes place before March 1986, and it's set in a countryside somewhere in the US. I am going to go ahead and give my opinion on why the fan theory that Billy from Feed Me Billy could not be Billy Johnson from Babysitter Bloodbath. Billy is known to use many aliases, with even the name Billy being a joke about the goat that appears at the end of Feed Me Billy. We have no confirmation of Billy's real legal name, and that is a part of the mystery surrounding his character. Billy most likely worked at a small-time job. I have a hunch saying that he gives me the vibe of a possible mechanic, considering the surrounding environment and his truck that looks pretty good but also looks like it could have been a project vehicle before his initiation into the CFV. Billy also seems to be a very approachable person, which I am sourcing from how he is able to make both men and women go home with him and Feed Me More Billy, but I do not imagine he had a very high status before he became a high-ranking member of the CFV. I'd say Billy's parents probably passed away at a young age, which led Billy to have to find his own way of doing things while still being young and impressionable. An emotionally confused and psychologically weak Billy probably met a member of the CFV which uplifted him and told him he was made in his father's image, which led him to being loyal to this person as well as the group known as the CFV.
Yeah, boy.
After working so hard for so long for the CFV, they probably made life easier for him as long as he did dark favors for them, which I am willing to bet that eventually Billy developed a link with the monster in his closet, which made Billy no longer have question of commitment in his mind. This is something that is noteworthy in Feed Me Billy because the first couple of days Billy is on his murder spree, you can interact with the corpses and get dialogue that almost shows remorse for what he has done. But as Billy goes on, he starts to care less and less, dehumanizing those around himself. I would like to note that on the first day of sacrificing people, Billy says, "I'm sorry, I had to," which makes me theorize that maybe if the Bucker creature is starving, Billy feels like he's starving, or maybe the CFV would do horrendous things to him if he did not comply. Something that is interesting but also pretty gross is the question of how the monsters develop. Do they just start to grow in CFV members' houses, making them a form of radioactive fungus, or are they a hallucination? Which means both Billy and the Butcher are insane, and the only reason that Roxanne can see it is because she's been exposed to CFV footage. I don't think that's the case, however. I think just like any dev, Puppet Combo needed more time to truly put the lore together. I also believe I've heard Puppet Combo has a hard time with finishing things they've started in the past, and Feed Me Billy was initially supposed to be a one-off game according to their Patreon post. So I hope that this does not stop them from linking Feed Me More Billy, Pancake House, and the unnamed motel game together and adding some surprise level with some fluff to create Feed Me More Billy, which could include a level select and play very closely to Christmas Massacre. No matter what the case is though, I always have a great time speculating at a character's backstory when it is hinted at by small tidbits of information around them. I think I'm going to make a Who Was series and start doing in-depth reviews for each Puppet Combo killer, and maybe even protagonist if that's something you guys want to see. But definitely go watch my Puppet Combo timeline if you're confused about any events, and go watch my Who Was the Butcher video if you want to see more in-depth character analyzation. If you have watched this far into the video, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, join my Discord, and if you want, you can check out my social medias. I haven't done much with them yet, but I have a couple ideas. Anyways, have a good one, and I'll see you guys later.